In a new climate change report, the United Nations says the world is heading in the wrong direction. The report says there's a 48% chance that global temperatures will rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius over the next 5 years. Data shows a 93% chance that the Earth will experience record-breaking heat over the same period. CBS News senior national and environmental correspondent Ben Tracy joins us now to talk about this. Ben, good to see you, my friend. So we keep hearing about these ambitious promises and plans proposed by countries, including here in the United States, to cut their greenhouse emissions. But we haven't seen that happening. I mean, I wonder, oftentimes I think people feel like it's just one way to look good on the world stage. You deliver a nice speech at the UN, and then the political realities of being able to get these things done through either the Congress here in the United States or parliaments anywhere else is very difficult.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head there. That is the problem. These are just promises. These are things people put on paper. They're things they say in public. And there's really no repercussion for countries that don't meet the goals that they have put out there. The second issue is we're still burning fossil fuels, and we're burning them at near record levels. You know, during the height of the COVID lockdowns, when everyone was stuck at home and no one was driving to work, greenhouse gas emissions fell by about 5%, but we are now back to pre-pandemic levels and then some. So we have not made progress on this front. And you mentioned, you know, for instance, the promises here in the United States. President Biden has promised to cut greenhouse gas emissions by about 50% by 2030. But even with all the climate measures in the latest Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by Congress, we're only on track to get to about 40%. Now, that's a whole lot better than where we've been, but it's not going to meet that goal that President Biden laid out there. And what the UN is saying in this report is that countries need to be about 7 times more ambitious than they are currently if we're going to keep warming below 1.5%. So there's, or 1.5 degrees rather. So there is a lot of work to do on this front.
I know that we've already seen, you know, areas of this planet melting that didn't melt before. I'm thinking about Siberia and how we're suddenly like uncovering mammoth carcasses that have been buried for, you know, thousands of years. The goal is to keep warming at or below 1.5 degrees Celsius. What happens if we go beyond that?
Well, I know sometimes this 1.5 degrees Celsius can feel like this magic number because it's the number we always talk about. But basically, this is just what scientists believe is the level at which, if we go beyond that, we're going to experience worst impacts of climate change. If we can keep it below 1.5, we can manage this to some degree. But keep in mind, we're only at about 1.1, 1.2 right now, and think of the things we're already seeing. So the fear is if we go above 1.5 degrees, we could reach what they're calling tipping points. And there's a new report out just this month that shows that some of those tipping points could be pretty dramatic, including kind of an abrupt thawing of permafrost in the Arctic. You could have mass melting of ice sheets in Greenland and Antarctica that would raise sea levels. So there is real concern here in terms of flirting with that number and how far above it we go. Right now, it does look like it's baked into the cake that we will exceed 1.5 degrees at some point. The question is, how far does it go above that? And can we bring that down by rapidly cutting our greenhouse gas emissions?
So this is very dire. I mean, it doesn't sound dire. It is dire. Summer, we've seen extreme heat and flooding. And give context to that, Ben, because a lot of people sometimes say, well, it's always been hot, or we've always had floods and hurricanes and monsoons. Help our viewers understand the difference between weather and climate.
Yeah, or people think this is all just kind of game over, that, you know, this train is moving down the track and there's nothing we can do about it. I interviewed Al Gore last year, and he said something that just really stuck with me. He says, too often people are going from climate denial to climate despair without stopping in the middle and actually doing something about it. And we should keep in mind that this really is still in our control. It's up to us if we want to cut our greenhouse gas emissions, because we know that that is what is warming the planet. If we stop putting all that stuff up there, we can actually stop the warming, and at some point we can reverse some of this. So there is some hope out there. The question is, are we going to actually do it? And to your question about weather and climate, you know, we see this summer, for instance, record flooding, record heat waves. Climate change doesn't necessarily cause a heat wave to happen, but when one does happen, it makes it a whole lot worse. So it can be longer, it can be more punishing. If we have record rain, you'll get a lot more rainfall because the atmosphere is wetter. So climate change basically just makes everything more extreme that might have happened already.
Ben Tracy, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.